to take on Dempsey, but he rushes immediately towards the enemy side, and Crazy Raccoon has to follow in the pursuit.
Yeah, here comes the defense as well. Moya now trying to assist on this. A cleanup from Tinsai here. Satampo tries to continue this mid-pressure. Locreo inching up this right-hand side where Max will take over. Moya doesn't deal a ton of damage on this heist save. One key to look out for is if Nita doesn't have Bruce as an assistant, she really can't deal that much damage. It's almost worth leaving her on that heist save alone. But in this case, Carl, he dishes out a ton of damage. Surge finally hitting that tier 2 Sage, and a better defense is here for it.
Suzuki's just at level 2, though. Level 3 is really going to be the end game for him, but Shitampo is being very, very stingy. He's not letting him get any hits, but here comes Dempsey rushing in, and really all that time that Crazy Raccoon is wasting is starting to catch up with him, as Dempsey is going to be able to consistently charge up those supers and rush towards the enemy side. Crazy Raccoon, they're also trying to get a super for Nita. Moya Goku now with the speed rushes up the right side, and they're also going to have to deal with that trigger. Here's Moya Goku, super in. Dempsey, it's his responsibility. Shitampo's trying to defend. He just gets himself locked in the right side. Dempsey, some free supercharge for him as he now has it right to go on the enemy side. And Tensai being the lone defender on the left side is going to be big value for OK as they continue to march forward.
Excellent conversion there for CR. I mean, what a good trade there. They now get themselves a small lead. 30 seconds to go, roughly. Okay, certainly have a chance here, but they're going to have to hold on for dear life. Dempsey breaking down the walls now, looking for the shotgun brawler. A bunch of 3K plus shots raining in. There's some extra damage coming in from Suzuki, too, but they need to be careful here. Satampo now has a super in hand and might go for the safe. There it is, the flying hook through, but the defense coming in from Dempsey. It's going to be a tough one here, but Moya now gets Bruce the Bear as an assistant, and now all the damage pouring into that high safe. A cleanup there. Crazy Raccoon now with a 2-0 lead.
Beautiful stuff for Crazy Raccoon. I love the ending right there. It all came to a head, and I was actually quite surprised when I saw Shitampo use a gadget and then go in with a super, because he's not running Protective Pirouette. He's in fact using Power Throw to get a bit faster swing back time on that pickaxe. He fully intended to engage Surge for the entire time. If you were paying attention to Brawl Esports just 6 months ago, then you're already well acquainted with the Surge into the Carl meta, but seems like Crazy Raccoon, they haven't quite left it behind, and they're still making it work just as well. But you can't shrug off OK. They played really, really well in that second game, and they almost had it towards the end, just a moment of having their weakness exposed to let Crazy Raccoon take it back in the last few seconds.
Yeah, I think overall another impressive set for them, right? I think a lot of people expected, you know, the previous world champions to kind of walk in here, do some damage, come away with a clean victory, and it is 2-0. I mean, credit where credit is due, but I think OK are also kind of holding their own here. You know, you don't see it as much
Nemesis. Also, we see a slow at mid, Tensai solo slowing Suzuku. Of time, Goku not getting any value off of that. Tensai also just
Ну что, друзья, вы
For Crazy Raccoon to try and score a goal.
Yeah, well here. There's the super kick forward. They were looking for a flashy goal. They couldn't quite get it. Now it's Suzuku marching up this map, trying to take on Tensai and Tapo. Picks up the first, a power-up as well. He's going to need some insane dodges here, relying on that shield, staying up, a phase shift forward, backs him up, though, and somehow comes out of that alive.
Love that 1v1 interaction right there. Okay, doing a phenomenal job of holding their own, but Crazy Raccoon still, they just got to defend for a minute 20 longer or put the goal in fast and simple. With Suzuku out of the picture, it's going to be a lot easier. Moegoku has a super at the ready, and the goal is blocked up. Dempsey manages to clear out of the way, and Milkrio's still alive on the right side, so they still got hope. And they absolutely will be able to push out of here now that Suzuku's at the ready. But Moegoku's waiting for him to appear. Even though Dempsey's getting focused down on a 1v2, he's still able to stay alive. Milkrio on the right side, blocked up by the residue. Dempsey continues trying to push forward. Big stick around onto Suzuku, but he's so tanky. Not with a bunch more damage contributed by Shitetampo, though. He's really just the scapegoat for all of this. Big play for Tensai. Milkrio is still able to snag it, but he walks back into the goal. Tensai snaps it up, and Crazy Raccoon, they win the first semifinal, and they're going on to the grand finals.
Wow, what a tough way to go down there. I don't know if it was a matter of being out of shots, a little bit of just fumbling the ball, trying to get out of that goal side, but they did pick up that ball a couple times, maybe with an opportunity to kick it away, but I think it would have been a very difficult thing to overcome. Crazy Raccoon, though, living up to expectation. It's a different name for these players this year, but still a large organization that has some phenomenal players. A semifinals is not the expectation for them. Heck, maybe even making Worlds isn't enough. I think this is a team that has their mindset on one goal, and that's going all the way to Worlds, and it starts here. Mission accomplished, at least for this first one. We'll get to see them later down the line, though. Awesome stuff from OK, though. I think overall, you know, it was 3-1. I think there were times where Crazy Raccoon showed their mechanical prowess, but to be honest with you, OK played really well, all things considered.
Kills over the course of this set.
Whew, that's a big number coming in from Satapo. That's just Satapo stuff, to be honest with you. I mean, these guys are incredible. I know we've been gassing them up all night, but it's just because they're so darn good. I think an MVP call here is pretty tough considering the names on that right-hand side, but the people have spoken. Y'all are rolling with Satapo. I think a great choice too, Reddy. I had an excellent 4 sets there, especially after that one that they go down on. They managed to pick themselves right back up, and of course, due to some strong Satapo play, they're able to come away with it.
Absolutely. I mean, really, Shitetampo sort of the star of this last match, too, but also Tensai, Moegoku, star players in their own right, being excellent teammates and excellent stars when the time.
Raccoon's going to get all the talking, but this second spot in the region, at least on paper,
You look at the history of these players as well. I'm sure all of you avid Brawl Stars esports fans have done your research on these two, especially going into your predictions, because you can never forfeit the opportunity to get some awesome pins to flex on your teammates. However, Guts and Chasmec Gaming EA, they both got some pretty great rosters. Guts, I think in summary, this is really Achapi, and the two brawlers, or two players that he's selected to be at his side. It's Levi and Minmi at his flank. Chazmac, East Asia, that's Kenji and Kuru, as well as Melty. And we've seen Melty do some good things over the course of the last year, getting 4 monthly finals appearances in that year. But Kenji and Kuru, both on opposite sides of the arena at the World Finals last year in the Grand Finals stage. Just great players on both sides of the arena. It's tough to make a choice, but I think all of us do at some point. Predictions, I think, Kenny.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I ended up rolling with Guts and, Achape, Levi, Menmi, all very strong players, but Achape kind of going out on a limb here on his own, diverting from the Zeta Division roster that he was with last year. I mean, he's won 2 world championships with a row, and I think this is a year where it's a legacy maker for him. If he can prove it and do it again with a completely different set of players that haven't quite been to that same level, say, as Satimpo, Moya Goku, Tensai, Kuru, Kenji, they're rivals and teammates even. I think it would be a strong showing for him. I'm really excited to see what he can do alongside these guys today.
Hey, look, all these things that we've said before and that are just well known around the globe. Achapi, just a very decorated player, world champion 2 years in a row, now seeking his 3rd. And also, of course, with 2 new players at his side, might be able to do it with the former World Finals champions, or rather, reigning World Finals champions, but we roll back the clock to 2021. All 3 of the players making up that roster, they've all finally split ways by now onto different rosters. So if one of those teams wins the World Finals this year, there will only be one 3-time running world champion, which would be a fantastic storyline. And honestly, this is a long play for Achapi and the crew.
Well, of course, we've talked about these former world champions, but the rest of them going to be on this other side here. It's going to be a Chasmic Gaming EA formed by Kenji, Kuru, and Melty. Of course, Kenji and Kuru, if you were a fan last year, going to be very familiar, but if you watched our East Asia region, Melty had some strong performances here too. This is also a very strong set of 3 and could definitely come away with this one.
This is absolutely true. Melty, of course, a brawler that we should not be sneezing at, despite not appearing in the World Finals like many others in the semifinal stage here in East Asia, because this is an extremely competitive region. We've seen Melty pull off some great stuff there. Of course, at his side, Kenji, Kuru, both appearing on Zeta Division 1 and Zeta Division 0, respectively, and getting some great plays and honestly completely deserve their spots at number 1 and number 2 in the World Finals last year. I have high expectations for this roster. I think really the biggest question for me is how is Melty going to mesh with this roster?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point too. There's a little shape up here. Kenji and Kuru are very familiar with each other, of course, have had great success in their own right in the past, even outside of Zeta Division last year, right? Kenji was a phenomenal player even before that. I think there's a lot of good stuff here, and Chasmic Gaming could really make a name for themselves, just like Guts. I mean, again, it is a clean slate. We've talked all this hype about Crazy Raccoon since they announced that they're going to be playing together, even before the signing of that organization. But these are 2 teams that could absolutely put in some work here and make it out of this one alive. A world's final spot on the line, of course, for this region, and these are 2 teams very worthy of it. But first, it's going to start off on Super Beach. I think this map is so interesting, Reddy. The drafts always play out a ton, and that 6th pick, a very important one on this map.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a map where the draft can be incredibly unpredictable. And, of course, if you saw just a moment ago the predictions, they didn't look so good for Guts. Chasmac Gaming EA with 83% of the vote. Here's the Barley first pick, and this is exactly what you and I are talking about, Kenny. This draft can be very unpredictable at times, but I think it is actually quite well known among the professional community and just the esports fans in general that Barley completely dominates on this map. As a first pick, though, I definitely am left scratching my head a little bit because there are options for breaking down walls and dealing with Barley quite effectively, and I think Guts absolutely have that in mind and plan to counter it out going forward. Looks like Chasmac Gaming EA have kind of not leaned into that, though. They've gone with the Crow and the Penny, both brawlers that don't have a good time versus Barley.
Yeah, this is blowing my mind a little bit. Barley, of course, a very common 6th pick here. He's kind of the one, if you can get away with him, you absolutely do it, especially when there's no wall break on the map. But it looks like Chasmic Gaming aren't feeding into that. They could go with a tankier brawler to try and counter him out. Maybe a little nervous just with tank counters available on the board. But this is a very curious way of going about this. I mean, Barley first pick, I would say, is a very bold play coming in from them. Anytime you take a squishy thrower like that, very easy to counter it out. They even managed to get Otis out of this interaction, too. I mean, I think Otis is still one of the strongest brawlers in the meta right now. That helps them out with these tanky matchups too if they elect to go for that, especially kind of covering for the weaknesses of Barley here. Very interesting draft. This is just definitely not one I was expecting.
Here's what I'm thinking now after a bit of time to sort of meditate on this, is that they wanted to go with Barley pretty much from the outset, and they didn't want to face it as a last pick, but they also wanted to have their next couple of picks, first Otis and then one coming in just a few seconds, to react to Chazmac Gaming's picks and not have to waste one on Barley. Here's going to come the Ims as well, and this is a reaction to the Crow and the Penny, if my math works out correctly. But now Chazmac Gaming EA have a final pick to think about how they're actually going to deal with this Barley. If they choose not to, in my opinion, would be a big mistake, but I'm just a professional opinion haver as a caster. I'm not a pro player, and I'll leave it to Chazmac Gaming EA to really lay down the law and show us what's what.
Hey, that makes two of us, brother, and I really think you have to kind of look at a wall break here, right? I mean, we've got Barley on the map, we've got Ims on the map, Ims with some good mid-range, and what is going on, bro? What is happening? We get a Colt final pick? Oh my goodness, this is going to be an awesome set. I mean, this is a crazy draft. If you're new to Brawl Esports, great one to start you off with. This is definitely untraditional, though.
It's completely untraditional. I mean, typically in this situation, I'd say, oh, this is a Colonel Ruffs for sure. You know, you can power up your teammates. It's a great thing to have. Throw down some sandbags. Of course, when you're facing Ims and Otis, you'd obviously not be running the sandbags. You'd be running the second gadget instead. But the most important thing is, yeah, you break down walls, and you can also get some ricocheted shots around the side. It's also just a favorite of this region. But the Colt, I'm here for the spectacle, if anything. And so far, Guts, they're marching up the field. Kenji, he hasn't broken up any walls so far. Here comes the first, and he's going to be taking down all of those ones on the left side. Just great precision with which he's able to do that, and really laying into Minmi. Here's the next one as well. Perfect destruction on the walls. And honestly, now I'm starting to see why the Colt was selected.
Yeah, it's a risky pick, but I mean, it kind of plays the role that we wanted it to, right? We were looking for wall break, maybe some range to play into that Ims or Otis and Barley. Once these walls come down, Barley is
Open walls, might even go for a goal-scoring combo. Here it is onto a choppy, and the walls are broken down. Now we're really starting to feel the effects of what an opened-up super beach can achieve for Chazmac Gaming EA. But Minmi, he's still just fine being hunkered down on the right side, but is seriously limiting in terms of where he can move. Still trying to keep back Kuru. Kenji also getting some serious damage locked in, but Minmi safe, and Kenji goes down. It's now time for Guts to press up the field once again.
Yeah, I'm sure they were hoping to get that Melty Super to be on offense, but instead there's now for Chazmac Gaming an opportunity. Kuru hovering over that super button, going to elect to use it to apply a little pressure here on the goal side. Kenji raining shots down on the left. Levi outranged, outgunned right now, and once again, it's going to be Guts forcing themselves to play a little defense.
It's going to take a big super from Kenji to have any chance of throwing this one into overtime. Otherwise, Guts, they get to hunker down. Even the ball is cornered on the left side, and Levi is the personal bridge toll keeper of that left side. Choppy also standing by. Big connection onto Kenji as he gets pinched super hard. Only a few seconds left. Melty might be forced to jump in here, and even then, it won't be enough to get him home safe. Kuru can try, but Minmi's blocked it up. Some spins, too, and the wind's headed over the way of Guts, but it's just the first one of this set. And we've already seen with the last match just how pivotal it can be, that time to think, sit back, sort of analyze, and take a deep breath from game one to game number two, especially in the first set. But from what Guts had to offer, it looked so dominant. And even the draft looked way more consistent from Guts, too.
It's one of the coolest parts of competitive Brawl. Anything can happen on all three games, despite the same map and the same brawlers, but so far so good for Guts here. Kenji connecting quite a few shots. There's the wall break. A nice dodge from Minmi, though, and they actually get the pickup there, too. 3v2 situation. Levi stepping it up as well, has an opportunity, shoots the ball forward. Kuru with the interception, though. Gonna kick it off to the right-hand side. Kenji trying to play as much defense as he can. Gets the double as well. It's just a lone Minmi now as Kenji pops off there to clutch up for Chazmac Gaming.
1, 2, maybe 3, but he's abandoning that left side to let Kuru take it instead. A double kill certainly looks flashy for Kenji, and it's quite telling what we can expect from the Colt once all these walls are broken down, and especially when he has a super in hand. boldest pick that we've seen, I think, in this region so far, but it's also one that really impressed me when it came to mechanics. But it was moments like these where things got so disjointed from the team. Melty and Kenji both being overextended, where Guts had two members right in front of the goal, ready for a ball to be passed up and slap it up into the goal. This is, I think, Chazmat Gaming EA being a powerhouse roster for sure, but getting a bit ahead of themselves, and Guts, they're absolutely punishing it.
Yeah, this is a huge play right here, too, and one to remember as well. We'll be looking back on that one, I'm sure, at the end of the day. But Levi with a nice bucket after the heroic effort there of Barley using the gadget to stay alive just a little bit longer. Pops that super and a nice bucket there, too. But, I mean, when you look at it on paper, you wouldn't know any different. I mean, it would have looked like a pretty close matchup. At the end of the day, you see Kuru with 10 kills. You see Kenji with 7. Melty with a nice little 5-piece there, too. I think a lot of people, if you just looked at this, would have thought, hey, Chazmat Gaming might have won that set 2-0. But instead, it's a choppy Levi and Menmi coming away with this one. Guts, the free agent roster, of course, coming away with their first set victory. Now hopping over to open zone. This one is a real interesting one to break down in drafts ready.
Certainly is, and also if we backpedaled a little bit and looked at the stats, I mean, I think we can expect after the outcome of this set right here that the stats could lean in either direction no matter the outcome. Point being, you just got to get bodies on the point in order to get capture. You can keep on dying, but it doesn't matter if the enemy never steps on that point. Poco first pick from Chazmat Gaming EA. And Guts, they haven't banned B, so I'm highly anticipating a B selection from Guts. They also should be thinking about things that are good combos with Poco, because if you start to let that Poco ball get rolling, it could be absolute bad business. We already see the max ban, so they have that on the table so far. They've got a couple more selections that they can roll with, just not Crow, because, well, they've already banned that out too.
Yeah, I think we're looking at Meg at B here. I think those are two really good options. You shouted out the B, of course. That range can keep up with Poco. Looks like we're a couple wizards, but Meg, somebody that does so darn well in hot zone. Of course, the only way to really deal with her is some high DPS. She shows up on this map and a lot of the other hot zone maps quite a bit. Once she's in that mech form, she can hold on to that hot zone and do so well into applying some offense onto the other team. We'll see what they end up selecting. I wouldn't blame them for a few different directions here. This is a wide open map. Of course, the Poco going to be quite good for bringing the heals to the teammates. Not necessarily the range that some of these sharpshooters will have, but nonetheless can do quite well in this map too.
Absolutely. We'll have to see what Gus decide to go for here. Colette is their selection now. And personally, not exactly my favorite, but it kind of doesn't matter because in East Asia, the players play what they want to play, and even if it's not the hardest counter ever, they'll still be able to pop off on a certain brawler. I think this is just sort of the prediction that Chazmat Gaming EA are looking to pick up something kind of tanky here, and Levi's here to deal with it. You just got to note also that Poco can seriously mess things up for Colette because, of course, Colette, it's all about getting those combos together. You can kill any brawler with just 2 normal attacks and the soup right out the window. Do I think Poco's going to be running to Capo? Not exactly, but it's still an option on the table. And it's something Guts should be thinking about when they go for their last brawler, because they got to be going for something that can deal with Poco a little bit more effectively than B, because you can't stick all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, it should be interesting here. I think the Colette's a good one to kind of look at here, because if you entertain the idea of Meg here, once she's in that mech, Colette, of course, can shred through that with the decaying shots coming through, kind of daring them to take that pick, I think. But I think they were kind of equipped with that when they went with Colette. I think Guts could have an answer.
Ну что, друзья, вы все меня просили за...
Who's able to eliminate a lot of them in just one go. So we'll have to see how exactly this one pans out. Chazmat Gaming A still trying to hold their own at mid, doing quite a good job despite facing into the B. Levi, he's taking the left lane so far. Melty getting slowed down, big connections from Levi, but here are the sandbags that we need to see from Kenji blocking things off. On the right side, Minmi taken down, and Levi still able to take the upper hand here at mid. Slow coming in, no connections just yet. Melty still taken down. Levi on top. Choppy doing his best to also regain some of this territory here, but Kenji has a supply drop.
That's a strong start for them here. 3 brawlers.
Go at a moment's notice. Kuru on the left side also. Back in the mech, has a lot of help to work with, and Melty is ready at his side with a super of his own. Minmi still has that super in hand. On the right side, could use some bit of damage blocking to deal with Kenji, but for now, Guts are staying pretty confidently on this point despite Chasmac's best efforts. Kenji still, though, getting some damage locked down, and Minmi is using that turret to body block a little bit. He's going to have to work hard for the next one, though, because Melty and Kenji are looking super, super strong as this duo on the right side, and they're dodging out so many of Levi's shots as well. It just looks like they're dodging out every single one. Levi can't connect a shot, but Guts are still in the lead. Last set of sandbags from Kenji as well on the left side. Choppy trying to deal with Kuru. He finally gets the upper hand, healing up in the process. And a little spin as well as a fun interaction. But Guts still have a real contender here. As Choppy circles back, tries to take down Melty. Great combo, and they could close it out.
That's a brave play from a Choppy. I don't think I could spin on him like that, especially when it's as good of a player as he knows. But now Kuru powering up 93% and climbing. They get the first takedown that they need. Melty being popped away. Kuru still standing, though. Close call, but a team wipe here. And Guts going to take this first game.
Very, very close interaction right there. It was absolutely all over the place, and I got to commend Chasmac Gaming EA for their performance here, because I think as far as the composition, this one absolutely goes to Guts, especially because they have that B. But you saw how consistently Chasmac Gaming EA are dodging those shots from B. There's some big projectiles. It takes some serious juking to get out of the way, but Melty is going to get tapped up just a little bit, and Levi's here locking in even more damage. Minmi getting great damage as well. Guts, they're all over this point. And Crew on the right side still continuing to get backed up. Choppy and Levi working together to get rid of him. A fantastic pinch by Guts, and they retain a huge lead with 0% conceded to Chasmac Gaming EA so far.
And the team wipe. This is going to where things get really difficult. The spawn trap coming through. A Choppy just continuing. A storyline that I'm really interested to see how it works out. They come away with a very close game 1, but game 2, my goodness, Guts just ran away with it.
was a runaway victory for Guts, too. I mean, look at this. They got to about 50% before Chazmat Gaming EA got their first chance to step on that point. That says a lot, especially with Chazmat Gaming EA coming into this one as a total frontrunner. You saw the percentage points, everyone. 83% banking on Chazmat Gaming EA to take the W here, and it's going the complete opposite way. Fantastic plays for Guts, just flashy stuff, and especially a choppy on the Colette. Camping things in the back left, despite there being a healing pad, even diffing things on the right side too. The numbers, I think, really tell a pretty painted picture as well. Guts with fantastic stats, especially a choppy and Levi. Chazmat Gaming EA really left with a 1, 2, 3. Not precisely what they came out here looking for, but they can still find some kind of recourse in set number 3. But you get the reverse sweep, that's a super difficult challenge.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Chazmat Gaming certainly equipped with the players they've got to try and do that. But, you know, I know Hot Zone isn't all about those kills, but when it's that big of a deficit, I think it really does go to show just how in control Guts were for the most part. Of course, that game number 1, a real one to watch, but game 2, I mean, you could see it there. 2 players for the side of Guts have more kills than Kenji, Kuru, and Melty combined. I think that's a statement that Guts made in that second set. Now they need to walk away with just 1 more here. Impressive stuff, each trying to kind of create their own new monarchy, as we will, to go along kind of what we alluded to during the World Finals. Zetas were kind of dominating. They both made those semifinals. Plenty of players here that did it. Now they're going to have to do it separately this time. Safe Zone going to be our next map. 2-0 here as Chazmat Gaming are going to have to claw their way out of this one.
Yeah, I'm pretty tempted to call that last one a comp diff, and we'll see if the same goes for this set right here and now. Guts, they pick up the Colette immediately, and yeah, that has to be a choppy, especially after how well he played in the last game. With Chazmat Gaming banning out 8-bit
dimensional. They now open it up to get left and right hand lane, but Piper is as classic a brawler as it gets, not only for this map but just for Brawl Stars in general. A lot of nostalgia when I see this brawler, a lot of fun memories of some crazy plays, and I hope Melty can do that here.
Yeah, same deal here. I mean, love to see the Piper every now and then because it does bring me back to the good old days where this was the go-to sniper, and especially on Safe Zone, love playing the brawler here. However, it's going to be a difficult one to play if you don't break down some of those walls, especially Guts, I think, are keeping this in the back of their heads, as once Piper and Colonel Refs has broken down a lot of the walls, you're going to have something appropriate to react with. Here's a selection of Belle, and this definitely makes sense. She's not the strongest brawler these days. She's pretty middle of the road, but she also does have the range to get the job done, and she can get that super onto an enemy to tap them a little bit faster for a kill. Final selection for Guts, though. What will they go with? They got to be going for something that can deal with the Piper and or the Ruffs, which is going to be a pretty difficult challenge. But keep in mind that Chazmat Gaming EA so far not selected something that goes on the right lane. There's Griff, the wall breaker, and he'll be probably going for that left side, at least from our perspective, for Guts. Chazmat Gaming EA, you're going to have to think of a brawler for their immediate wall break. And seeing as we saw Ken G go for the Colt earlier, it could be a consideration.
Yeah, the more, you know, kind of this draft develops, the more I really love this Piper pick. Piper, the long-distance brawler that can deal out a hefty amount of damage onto somebody like Colette, who doesn't necessarily have that same capability. Of course, a Belle versus Piper 1v1 matchup, traditionally, if they're equal players, we would favor the Piper because that extra distance, the higher shot, the faster reload speed from Piper all adds up, makes it a little more difficult for that Belle. So that's 2 very favorable matchups, I think, for Piper here, especially assuming that she's going to take the mid here. Somebody like Belle or Colette are going to have to do that. Otis, just as good of a brawler as it gets. They don't have a free wall break per se on the side of Chazmat Gaming EA. They have to earn at least a Colonel Ruff super, but it's at least a tangible thing that they can attain, and I think something that opening up the map here will certainly help Piper out.
And this is also kind of where I would like to backtrack and maybe rescind what I said, because Chazmat Gaming EA, now with the selection of Otis, facing versus a Choppy. It'll be a fantastic go for him, but Choppy now on the right side, Kenji ready to take him on. Now on the left side, Colonel Reps trying to get that good range versus Levi. He has some options for bouncing the projectile, which is what he's likely going to be using to take things on. So far, so good, I think, on the matchups for Chazmac Gaming EA. Good elimination for Melty as well as he looks to move through. Levi could be out of his depth, but now with a brawler approaching, Minmi looking for the assist, could be a good turnout for Chazmac Gaming EA. Just 8% knocked off so far, and not too much action so far.
And pretty much a stalemate on this right-hand side. Finally a pickup there as Melty's going to assist with that. I didn't even mention the gadget that adds another
Having to sit back and single biggest thing that helps Chazmac Gaming EA push back, because they do boast a range advantage, especially with Melty on the battlefield. A Choppy taking big damage. Kenji gets the upper hand too, and now he turns his sights to Minmi, trying to get this pinch, but Kuru is the foremost brawl on the left side and ends up falling down in the huge scrap. Big super in, Kenji silencing up Minmi. This could be Melty's moment, but he's going to go right into one of those gadgets unless he treads carefully. Here it is, he baits it out. He doesn't have to pay much of a price in return. Still, though, just one shot from going down, and it is actually quite a big deal with just a minute on the clock. Chazmac Gaming EA, they still have not touched Guts' safe.
The nest eggs are such a nice defensive protocol here. And now Levi diving in as well. 10% every time Colette does that at a bare minimum. That doesn't even include anything like damage gears. Melty getting a nice 3,000 shot there, but it's not enough to contend with what Guts are doing right now. Griff still on the other side, still doesn't quite connect either. And it's going to rain in with a few extra shots. Melty clawing his way up this map. Still has an opportunity to try and play some defense, but a Choppy just putting in work. It's almost like they're conceding in this moment. I'm not sure what they're going to do here, but a Choppy drops the piggy bank. Only a few percentage points left.
Levi for the final shot, specs out the safe. Good stuff. There it is, the final blow in the final game victory for Guts as they tear through this opponent, clawing their way to victory in 3 sets consecutively. Only one game going to the side of Chazmac Gaming EA. What a showing from this team. That is absolutely remarkable, absolutely unexpected, and precisely what competitive Brawl Stars is all about. Congratulations to a Choppy and the squad. What a showing today.
Excellent work overall. I mean, it's hard to argue that that wasn't close to a perfect outcome for them. And look, they've got a tough opponent ahead of them, but this was the one that I expected to be the closest of the entire day. We've got two grand finals, about to be our third here momentarily. And I thought the semifinal matchup would be two teams that would fare really close.
Them, but got still managed to pull out a great showing. Fantastic stuff. I mean, there's really not much more to say besides congratulations, Guts. You did it, despite what everyone thought.
Yeah, when you look at this too, this is a really interesting metric. Again, all the kills really favoring the side of Chasmic Gaming in this instance. But again, heist, the objective is not necessarily kills. That's not the whole story. It's just a nice number to kind of fit into the puzzle of what really happened here. Mimi, of course, with 5, doing some great work for his team. Levi still with some high DPS numbers there in a choppy with a 3-piece of his own. Overall, I'm so impressed with what Guts have done. I thought this was going to be a really close one. And again, I still think better days ahead for Chasmic Gaming. This is somebody that could still claim an LCQ, a Worlds type spot, anything like that. I certainly think they have that potential, but really impressive stuff for a Choppy who parted his ways, wanted to play with Minmi and Levi, and well, here we are. Now he's in a grand finals in his opening month.
Well, I mean, should they continue down this path, I mean, he could find himself the 1-3-time World Finals winner. We'll have to ask you guys, though, who was the MVP in a Choppy? Look, I could not agree more. 2-time world champion, now looking for his third, now with Levi and Minmi at either side. And it seems to be a recipe for success so far, taking down Chasmic Gaming EA, the far majority favorites in a 3-0 victory. But of course, the final boss of the region now awaiting them in the grand finals, and that is going to be a serious challenge of its own grade.
Well, Choppy, a well-deserved MVP, and I'm not sure that Uber, you were expecting something like this. What did you think about these semifinals, brother?
I mean, okay, I have to make a confession. So before the show started, we made our predictions, and I made my predictions for everything. So like, assuming the winner of these two semis, I think I said that I thought that Chasmac would win the entire thing. So, you know, obviously that was pretty off base. But what I thought was quite interesting is that, you know, you guys, the discussion a lot of the time is around maybe Chasmac having an off day or whatever. But I think in setting up a matchup between Guts and Crazy Raccoon, I just want to put it out to you, Reddy. Is it possible that Guts are just a little bit better than we gave them credit for?
I think that's absolutely the situation here. I mean, East Asia, every single one of these players that show up to the Brawl are the pinnacle of greatness in Brawl esports, especially mechanically. And I think that owes itself a lot to sort of the compositions that we see. They don't revolve around squeaking around just a little advantage over the enemy. Side by picking the best counter pick to play. It's also about, do I feel comfortable playing this brawler, and have I maxed out my skill points on this particular brawler?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, we saw Chasmac really try and play some power comps, especially on Ring of Fire, right? Try and make Poco work, and it didn't. Kenny, talk me through this bracket so far again, and sort of reset us here as we jump.
In this situation, but Guts have certainly been one to watch and have really impressed me here today.
All right, let's talk predictions, boys. I've had a chance, call it sweet serendipity, to change my grand final selection, given that the team that I had were not even going to be in that game. So obviously both of us had, you know, Chasmac EA sort of triumphing in that second semi-final. Not the case. So really, you know, Kenny is looking pretty good, makes that sort of Guts pick here. And again, if you look at the roster, if you look at the names, I think it's, you know, it's a pretty safe Raccoon. So let's direct the attention away from my pick, shall we? But let's talk about why you guys seem so certain, even after seeing such a dominant game from Guts, that Crazy Raccoon would be the stronger team and would come out winning. Let's start with you, already said. Sell me here. I mean, it's too late. I mean, I've already sold. I've already bought the other team. But sell me on Crazy Raccoon here and why you think that they're still going to be a dominant force.
Of those respective rosters that they were on.
Kenny, I mean, we've seen in East Asia, like, not just two teams sort of rule the roost. Last year, obviously, it was the two Zeta Division teams, but there were definitely, there's a lot of depth in the scene right behind that. Just how far ahead do you think Crazy Raccoon are now that we've seen them and their potential opponents compete in their semis?
You know, it's a fresh year. They've got plenty of accolades. I mean, Ready Set's touched on it. We talked about them all broadcast, but for me, this is a real opportunity for them to show that they might be the best 3 players in the world as individuals, and now they're coming together and forming a super team. This is a big moment for them, and I don't know. I just feel like this is a real showing. I think they have an argument to be just the best individuals, and now kind of forming the all-star team. I just think they're favorites. When doing scouting reports for scrims, to be quite honest with you, they have dominated the scoreboards. There's been very few teams that have contended. Even taking a set off them has been something that's been hard to do for a lot of these guys. It's really tough, but on monthly finals day, these teams can always bring it. Upsets happen. It's one of the reasons we love Brawl esports. I could expect some craziness, but I think on paper, Crazy Raccoon look like a pretty solid favorite.
A lot of history on this team. Tensai, obviously, on Jupiter back in 2020. Shtutampo and Moya. I mean, their names are synonymous with excellence in Brawl Stars, and they're here to run it back once more and start their 2023 campaign in a strong position. You know, Moya Goku, someone that, you know, especially Kenny really likes to talk. I feel like he gets overlooked a little bit here. It's tough, obviously, to stand out on a team of stars. Chapi, of course, and many names that you will be very familiar with if you followed along with the story of Zeta Division. Let's talk about Guts here, Ready Set, and tell me, you know, do you feel like they really exceeded your expectations here, or are you going to stick to this kind of idea that Chaz might look a bit weaker today?
Well, I'll tell you what, they have absolutely exceeded my expectations. However, you can't really go wrong with a Choppy and Levi and Minmi. Levi and Minmi, this is the duo, and a Choppy has selected them as his teammates. It would seem, right? But if we talk in perspective to Crazy Raccoon, I still think that these guys are a phenomenal team. They are just not, you know, the 2 MVPs of the 2 greatest teams of the entire last.
Вы все меня просили записать этот видос, потому что уже...
Сегодня в 11 часов 10 минут. Осуждаю, что в чате пишут.
A cheeky smile on his face. It was a lot of fun, obviously, to see these guys in person in Paris. And yeah, I mean, you've broken down a super team, but you've given the opportunity for players like Levi to now to step up into a top roster and to really start to contest some of these monthly finals here. So the grand final is just moments away, of course. Probably arguably, inarguably, the best region in the Brawl Stars world now. Kind of splitting their eggs a little bit and now fighting on multiple fronts here. But the reality is there can be only one winner here in this first monthly final. And that's always a statement. It's always something you remember. It's always something the casters like to draw back to as well. I'm like, remember that first monthly final? This really sets the pace, not only for this region, but also like we've talked about. This region is the one that births a lot of metas. They tend to get across different approaches and styles to the game first. So that's what we're looking at to see. Now, before we jump into the map, very quickly before we say goodbye to you, Kenny, Bridge Too Far, we've seen it a couple of times today already. It's on all the grand finals. You know, what do you think is your pick to watch out for from these 2 teams coming onto that map? Something that'll be either hotly contested through the bans or trying to be picked up early.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of player rate, Bell shows up a lot here, especially into 8-bit. We've seen it banned a few times now, but one we haven't seen yet, maybe not as much in this region, but I want to point out the Grom has not shown up on this map, and he is lethal as a high save damage dealer, and surprisingly can contend with quite a few long-range brawlers. Could be a sneaky pick here.
Love that. Love to have something to look for here in the pick and ban. Thanks so much for joining us so far, Kenny. We'll catch up with you on the other side. But now, ladies and gentlemen, It is time to jump into Bridge Too Far. That's right, Heist is up first in this grand final between Guts and Crazy Raccoon. Of course, I've got ready set here in the booth with me, man. It's time to put an end to the finals here in the East Asian region. I am pumped.
I'm super pumped too. I mean, it's time for the conclusion we've all been waiting for, but of course, I'm waiting on an expected conclusion. I put all my chips on Crazy Raccoon to take this one, but it looks like 40% of you guys watching put your chips on Guts instead. And to that, I say, awesome. Love to see the diversity of opinions here, especially when Tensai and Shitetampo get a whole lot of credit in this scene. We'll see what they're able to do here as they have selected Brock as the first pick. We'll make note of the bans as well. They've gotten rid of Colette, and to me, that sort of points out that they're thinking of some tanky ideas here. Could very much see the 8-bit being pulled out here, and this is precisely what Kenny was starting to talk about. Bell and 8-bit, the interaction is extremely important here, and there it is. Crazy Raccoon, they're still going to go for it despite facing a Bell on the enemy side. Don't seem to be too concerned.
So dangerous, right? You get tagged up by that Bell, and she's able to mark you with her super, then you basically just disintegrate as soon as an 8-bit looks at you. Obviously, Tensai on the other side of the map from a Bell this time around, but there's going to be a lot of range available here to Crazy Raccoon. I think that's obviously going to be important. Tensai, you know, we saw earlier on, I think it was Southeast Asian region where, you know, we saw like a 8-bit push all the way up the map, and from that point on, it was pretty much over here. So gonna have Nani locked in here at the end, and of course Colt makes a reappearance again, so not the first time we've seen him in East Asia here, this time of course on Heist.
Yeah, we've seen Guts play this brawler before, so we'll see if it's the exact same player going with the Colt this time. But, of course, it's still going to be a valuable brawler to have in your arsenal. You can get a ton of damage on that enemy safe. The only struggle is it's really tough to win lane as this brawler. I would anticipate Guts decide to run this on the lane that's a bit thinner. We'll see if it appears on the left side. And here it is. Yeah. Note that the terrain is just a little bit different for Moya here. Not only is he slow, but he only has 3 tiles to walk back and forth upon. It's going to make it difficult for him to dodge versus Minmi, but he's still doing a good job. On the right side, Achapi takes down Shitetampo to boot. And he's already going for that safe. Moya's trying to circle over to make an attempt at defending. Tensai also falls, but does get some inaugural damage on the enemy safe. It's 94 to 94.
Yeah, again, the Otis on that side lane, pretty crucial here. Gonna give Levi some pause for thought. Now as Tensai wants to collapse on the left-hand side. They lose to Tampa as a result here, and Achapi's already gets back in the mix. Love that response from Guts, but they take a ton of safe damage.
They certainly have, and they're trying to just sort of collect all of their senses at the time being. Tensai getting good dodges versus Levi on the right side, and here comes the peep in. Damage from mid. Levi's actually been putting in the work this time as well. He's getting ricochets off of whatever enemy he targets onto the safe too, and it's gotten some good damage trickled in, but we do say the left lane a success for Moya Goku as he continues to push up. Shitetampo on the right also fending off Achapi. So far, it's just a marginal advantage for Guts, but Crazy Raccoon is sort of winning in the territory game.
Achapi struggling in the weak lane. Obviously, as he's playing in the more narrow part of the map here, as obviously we have some symmetry. Shitetampo really doing a good job of just forcing him away there. Gacha pop by Shitetampo make it harder for Achapi to step forward. A lot of map control here in Tensai. Gonna rocket rain down on towards this safe now. Pretty elementary play here so far. It's just incremental advantages in these lanes and map control being taken by Crazy Raccoon. Damage booster up for Moya here. This might be a complete mirror image of the previous round.
Well, yeah, forget what you said about incremental, too, because once Moya gets that super down, it's just absolute hellfire raining down. And Mimi makes the same happen without the use of a super on the right side. Shitetampo goes down. Mimi tries to pinch Tensai up, but it's going to take more than just one player to pinch him in there. Tensai, he returns from battle without too much damage done and a mark on his face, and he gets taken down by Vel to follow. Crazy Raccoon are holding their own quite well. They only need 19% left to take the upper hand here. The Guts are not finished yet, especially Choppy as he goes for that super in. No teleport onto Moya, interestingly enough. Managed to back him up quite a bit. Tensai also falls. Guts, they're defending furiously. 40 seconds remain. Crazy Raccoon, they get one good
Lane in which he can win right now. This Nani pick is actually getting clobbered. Whether it's up against an 8-bit or an Otis, Achapi cannot find any advantages regardless. And there was a swap there. I mean, they tried to put him in a position where he could get a little bit more done there, but it wasn't going to be enough. And that's how the round really started to backslide at the beginning, right? He's getting forced out of lane by the Otis, and the Otis gets a ton of free damage, man. It's going to be one apiece here now, and the set hangs in the balance.
Certainly does. See who takes the upper hand, especially off the beginning, because we know just how vital that can be. Less than ideal lane matchup for Crazy Raccoon off the outset, but still Moya and Levi managed to stand their ground. On the right side, Shaitampo takes a lot of damage. Choppy gets the upper hand. Takedown and a super coming in. Tensai takes a lot of damage, but no Cigar for Choppy as he remains alive. But he does get the throwing those bodies at the safe and getting the damage from there. Yes, you're a lot more spongy when you have 8-bit on the squad, but you just keep on trying and trying and trying, and those maybe 3 opportunities across the entire game where you get 8-bit connecting on that safe make it all worth it. He gets so much damage, and the response from Guts simply was not enough to contend it.
But you have to say, you can see why Guts deserve their spot in this grand final. When they're able to start well and actually transition these early advantages or even just like lopsided lane matchups into safe progress, they look really good. Feels like they're not too far away. They're right there. Hot Zone, of course, is coming up next. It's going to be Ring of Fire. As you'll notice, normally, we don't sort of have multiple regions grand finals in the same show. It's kind of a unique thing we have this year. So it's the same map set. So it's a great opportunity to observe these different sub-regions of Asia Pacific and how they draft coming into maps like this. In the previous series, we saw, like I mentioned, like a Meg Poco pick come out. That's banned straight away from Crazy Raccoon. They don't want to see that.
Yeah, and I would probably ban that too, even though, I'm probably like Mythic in my Power League games, but here comes the Poco, and here it's to lay down the law too. But I think the response from Guts could once again just be that B. And it's sort of a toss-up, what you'll hear from the pros, what they say about B versus the Max. One slows things down, one speeds things up. Do they really balance out? Couldn't really tell you. You'd have to listen to the pros on that one, but it is quite 50-50. Guts, this is a prime brawler for them to pick. They go with the Lola for now, but they still have one more pick on their side to deal with before Crazy Raccoon gets a chance to react.
Yeah, it doesn't really give too much away about lane assignments, I suppose. We've seen a lot of Lola through mid at times here. On the other side, of course, there's a Max in play, so we have a decent idea of what Shitampa's going to try and make happen there. Crow banned here, so like a lot of that all-in potential, also Janet off the table. So a lot of the brawlers that we saw be really prevalent in other regions are actually just banned immediately. Both teams don't want to see Crow. They don't want to deal with the volatility there. The slowing toxin's also really scary. Oh man, we get this pick of Lou sometimes on Ring of Fire. And it's cheeky to be sure, but I mean, as far as zone control is concerned, you can't do much better than this.
Pretty much. I mean, really, the counter to Lou is pretty much don't get hit, which is something that every professional player loves to hear when they ask for feedback. Am I right? But see, Carl also going to be a fairly good selection for Crazy Raccoon. It's still going to be one of those that struggles supremely into Lou. Strategy for Crazy Raccoon is pretty much what I already said. Don't get hit. And it's inevitable. I mean, they were planning on getting hit as they have the Poco. Here's the benefit of having Poco, though. They'll probably be switching to that second gadget that allows them to clear any status effects, which includes freezing, which Minmi will be pumping out consistently. Yeah. But since they're relying on their health a lot, Minmi's going to be having a great time as long as he's connecting those shots onto the enemies getting up in his face. Once he gets those shots connected, it is one super cycled after another for Guts, and I think it's a recipe for success.
Here's the speed zone here, so it makes it a little bit harder for Tensai to connect onto Levi. A Chappie as well, going to be pretty fleet of foot here. A little bit frozen up here. We see a lot of Lus go for like the super cool cryo syrup combo, right? As soon as you sort of walk into a super, you're just frozen solid without really any opportunity to do much about it. But again, the most classic of classic compositions. It's a Carl, it's a Poco, it's a Max, and they are beating your head in.
It's what we've seen from these brawlers, and you can only pick 3 brawlers as well. Crazy Raccoon, they got more in the arsenal than just that, so good luck. But Guts, they're still bringing the heat in their own respect.
Yeah, look, I think the stats tell you that this is a game in which Poco exists. And it's not screeching solid, it's the Capo Poco, so the guy is constantly dishing out healing. So yeah, a lot of damage being done here, but that's not enough, right? You need burst damage, you need ways to shut down the healing, you need ways to isolate. And, you know, the Janna, as powerful she is, she's such a great all-rounder. At the end of that last round there, you see Crazy Raccoon try and equalize, but the Janet's up in the sky. She's dropping a couple bombs. She's going to be very low health when she drops down. They just didn't have enough time to really equalize around. I don't think they really had a panic button or an ace up their sleeve in order to really try and swing things in their favor. They just started from too far behind. They didn't have to rest that advantage back.
I think that's a great way of putting it, too. I mean, we saw Tampo try and make it right towards the end. 2 games in a row, both of the games lost that went side of Guts. He tried in the end to use a super all the way to the enemy side and pick up a kill, which works a good, consistent bit of time, but Guts, they were there ready for the reaction. And also, I'm sure the nerves were a huge factor for Crazy Raccoon as well, because that strategy, it fell flat on its face twice in a row. And I think this is going to be a big thing that Crazy Raccoon keep in their heads when prospective counters to some future picks in the pick phase in the following sets.
Yeah, obviously we're still looking down the barrel of match point here for Crazy Raccoon. They start with such a big lead here, but you know, sometimes the bigger a lead you have to start with, the more frustrating it can be when that starts to get clawed back here. That's just a general thing that we've observed a lot of the time in esports competition. And we're going to sneaky fields for the next map here as well, which is always volatile. It's always super interesting. And we know that both of these teams like to throw caution to the wind and make some pretty crazy picks here. So brawlers can really wreak havoc if they get snapped up nice and early, and Guts are on the lookout for a lot of these power brawlers. They're ready to pivot to strategies that involve them if they get to sneak on through here. So we're getting much more of a game, but you know, there's a question of like, okay, if Crazy Raccoon doesn't get absolutely beat black and blue in the pick and ban, what does that map look like? We'll never know, but that's something we're going to be on the lookout heading into the next draft phase.
Pretty much, and you know, I wonder how much of a pivot we will see if we see too much of a pivot. Are a couple of selections that I think could be quite strong here, but ones that I wouldn't necessarily expect are probably the Sprout. Not exactly the strongest on this map, where large priority is having a bunch of health and having a bunch of mobility to sneak over to the enemy side and slot in a goal.
I'm going to hand it to you. You basically just unironically casted what we believe is a placeholder pick and ban there. So, tell you, this guy's got it all up here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, ready to roll out for your listening pleasure at a moment's notice. So before we jump in, of course, a quick teaser on the EMEA February monthly finals coming up after this broadcast. That region is definitely in flux right now, right? Obviously, a lot of your household names, Na'Vi, Reply Totem, Zeta Division, Team Kaizo, they've made it through to the quarterfinals, but we saw a lot of really big names, like Fugalist, I guess, as a team with definitely some really known quantities, SK Gaming, a lot of those teams not make it through. So that's going to be crazy to check that out later on and see what the heck is going on in EMEA, but we are now into game, and Yeah, it's not the picks and bans that we saw here. So it's going to be, we actually have Leon, we have Ems here as well for Crazy Raccoon. I like that. Levi, the first casualty.
And thankfully not the draft that we saw just a few moments ago, but still just as wacky in a few departments, especially with Moyagoku on that Leon. Levi's trying to defend, but he didn't have the DPS ready to go. And Moya's able to run this one through. Great stuff for Crazy Raccoon, but now they have to hunker down and deal with the speed coming in from Minmi. Levi tried to make moves at the right side, but now he has to back away thanks to Shitetampo moving forward, tried to get some damage on him, but the friend zone is just too much to deal with. And Moyagoku has the invisibility around the backside. Minmi is trying also his best, but Moyagoku stabs him in the back. He's ready to go for a goal, but he's having to deal with Levi and Choppy first on either side of the goal. Now Minmi reappearing, but Crazy Raccoon have the supreme position to deal with it.
And Levi, tough for him to get involved here up against the composition. It's very slippery, right? Plus friend zone, which makes it, even if you get to your target, this happens to you, just get bounced back and get sent home packing there. Very convincing stuff from Crazy Raccoon here. Looked like a much more powerful draft this time around. Even, yeah, the home run star power there for Levi, really not remotely enough. Trying to use the cover of those bushes to sneak up and get some big hits here, but that looked absolutely terrifying to try and play into this composition.
No doubt. I mean, look, Guts here with a whole lot of speed, but Crazy Raccoon, that times two. Tensai zooming all over the place. Shitetampo's ready at the left flank, now coming in to try and take down a Choppy. Thankfully, Minmi spawns just in time to defend this. Moyagoku now up the right side. Wow! And a great use of the phase shifter by Minmi to clutch up this goal. And here's the speed once again, just like you said, home run, rushing up the left side. But Tensai's ready to defend as he has so much movement. He can go offensive, he can go defensive. As long as he's able to cycle out that super repeatedly, he's in a great spot.
Yeah, frustrating there for BB to try and deal with Stu, who can basically sidestep your expected swing arc there and end up behind you all the time. And yeah, caught inside the Caustic Charisma is going to be the BB falling once more. And this has been pretty darn one-sided so far. Crazy Raccoon now they're on the cusp, man. That was absolutely dominant performance from them.
Pretty much, I mean, already first goal in this game. They're just one goal away from bringing it home, but Minmi, he's looking for an opening. He doesn't want to be the last one to go down, but he does. Guts, they're going to be responding without him. And they got to defend versus this entire team. Should they decide to push in, they're going to try and bait that super. He's being quite stingy with it. There's a silence on Amoya. He's flashing his super, trying to pop it just in time. A full team takedown, and they're taking their time. Savor the moment. Crazy Raccoon, they're taking it. They are your champions of East Asia for this first month of BSC 2023.
Look, I guess it was just a stumble in that first set there, right? You know, Crazy Raccoon, yeah, for a moment, they looked like they got pretty outdrafted, but as soon as we hit the ground and Sneaky Fields, it looked like a completely different team, or rather the same team we saw in those first couple of sets. Very much justified now your predictions, you know, to see them go all the way this month. They are looking like the dominant force in this region. And it's interesting. There's quite a gap here. I have to wonder if we're going to end up with this binary setup where we have these two Zeta Division teams trading finals, or if the super team splitting up has just resulted in one giga team, one mega Ultron combination of players here, because it definitely seems like Crazy Raccoon are the most unscathed team coming out of roster breakups and players splitting up here. And I think they're showing that, right? The time playing together, a lot of that experience, you know, at huge events. And just, I mean, we're talking about players that come from 2020, 2021 here. I mean, it really showed there. That was one of the most one-sided maps we've seen tonight. That Sneaky Fields was just a non-game, it felt like.
I'm certainly leaning towards the perspective that Crazy Raccoon are just the super team of this region, and for every other team, it's pretty much going to be like, wow, I really hope I don't get on the same side of the bracket as them so that I can get some points to qualify for the World Finals. That, plus also, they have some pretty good teams on their heels as well. We've seen them face OK, we've seen them face Guts as well. Both seem to have that sort of potential to take them down, and I'm seriously looking at OK for that one, but Guts seriously put forth game, and Leon is a perfect example of them using that to their advantage and getting some showmanship out there too.
I mean, no matter how bad a day you're having, you're not having a day nearly as bad as someone who has to play BB against Stu and Ems at the same time. Very, very difficult to make that strategy work. We know obviously that, Soup is very, very powerful on maps that feature a lot of walls. There are a lot of angles that are really effective ways to set that up. And of course, she's very scary if the enemy team is sort of grouped up and you're getting some multi-hits, knocking people back. Yes, but it absolutely did not work here. You gotta love the composition from Crazy Raccoon. Yes, they have all-in potential, but for the most part, they can keep Guts at arm's length. They can pressure them down with a ton of damage and then slowly walk their way up. Chitampo here, probably no surprise to see him take the MVP away here, but absolutely deserved. Again, we have